He wanted nothing to do with me.
Fame has a way of hiding what really happens behind closed doors, and few lives prove that more than the story of Jerry Lewis. To millions of fans, he was a comedy genius whose energy, quick wit, and unforgettable performances made him one of the biggest entertainers of the 20th century. On television and movie screens, he seemed larger than life, always capable of making audiences laugh. But behind the applause existed a very different reality. Inside his own family, the man people admired was often distant, unpredictable, and difficult to understand. No one knew that side better than his son, Anthony Lewis. For decades, Anthony chose to remain silent. He watched as the public celebrated his father's legacy, while the private memories he carried remained locked away. Only after Jerry Lewis passed away in 2017 did Anthony begin opening up about what life had really been like.
I knew I wasn't going to get anything, but the real sticking point, the dagger in my heart, is for the grandchildren.
7 years later, he is finally prepared to tell his story, and the picture he paints is far removed from the image most fans remember. It is a story filled with complicated family relationships, emotional wounds, and a son trying to make sense of the man the rest of the world called a legend. Long before the fame, however, even Jerry Lewis's own beginnings were surrounded by uncertainty. His early life has remained surprisingly mysterious, with conflicting stories leaving historians unsure of several basic facts. What is known with confidence is that he was born on March 16, 1926, to Jewish immigrant parents. His father, Daniel "Danny" Levitch, had emigrated to New York from the Russian Empire, while his mother, Rachel "Ray" Levitch, came from Warsaw, Poland. Both carried with them a deep love of performance that would shape their son's future. Beyond those facts, the details become far less certain. Lewis himself often claimed that his birth name was Joseph, yet many official records identify him as Jerome. Even the exact hospital where he entered the world has been disputed over the years. Some believe these inconsistencies were simply the result of fading memories. Others have wondered whether Lewis intentionally reshaped parts of his own story as his career grew, perhaps hoping to soften the realities of growing up as a Jewish child during a period when prejudice remained deeply rooted in American society. Whatever the reason, the complete truth may never be known. Growing up in a family of entertainers, it almost seemed inevitable that Jerry would eventually find his way onto the stage.
It was not an Ozzie and Harriet life.
His father spent years performing in vaudeville, while his mother worked as a talented pianist for a local radio station. Entertainment surrounded him from childhood, and it quickly became obvious that he possessed an endless supply of energy. As a teenager, he became famous among friends for practical jokes, mischievous behavior, and constantly finding new ways to make people laugh. Those playful instincts would later become the foundation of his comedy career. His first real attempt at performing came through a simple but creative routine known as the record act. Lewis would lip sync and pantomime while a recording played from backstage, creating the illusion that he was delivering the performance himself. By the age of 15, he believed he had perfected the routine and earned a booking at a burlesque theater in Buffalo. Unfortunately, the audience showed little interest, and the performance ended in disappointment. With no additional offers coming in, he was forced to take ordinary jobs, selling sodas and working as an usher in New York theaters while refusing to abandon his dream of becoming an entertainer. His fortunes finally began to change after reconnecting with Max Coleman, an old vaudeville colleague of his father's. Coleman encouraged the determined teenager to give show business another chance, convinced that his natural talent simply needed the right stage.
When he'd show up and park right in front of the big front door, my mom would get on the intercom and would say, "Your father's home," and we scattered.
Taking that advice, Lewis began performing throughout the famous Catskills, often called the Borscht Belt, where Jewish families gathered for vacations filled with music and comedy. It was there that he started attracting attention eventually catching the eye of Irving Kay, the manager who would soon help launch the remarkable career that changed his life forever. Jerry Lewis continued performing on his own after those early disappointments, slowly building a reputation as a determined young entertainer. The work paid the bills, but true stardom still felt far away. Fate also intervened in another important way. Unlike many men of his generation, Lewis never served in World War II because doctors diagnosed him with a heart murmur, making him ineligible for military service. While countless young Americans were overseas, Lewis remained home, unknowingly staying on the path that would eventually transform him into one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Around this same period, he met singer Patty Palmer, who had performed with Jimmy Dorsey's famous orchestra.
We could never predict his behavior on a given day.
The two quickly fell in love, and on October 3, 1944, they were married. Together, they would build what appeared to be the perfect American family. During the 1950s, they welcomed 5 biological children, and in 1949, they adopted a son, Gary. To fans and magazine readers, Jerry and Patty seemed to have everything: a successful marriage, a growing family, and an exciting future. Yet behind the smiling photographs, life was becoming increasingly complicated as Jerry's career accelerated. The demands of fame slowly began placing enormous pressure on the family, creating cracks that few outsiders could see. When the couple married, Jerry was simply another ambitious performer trying to earn a living in nightclubs. But only 1 year later, in 1945, his life changed forever during an ordinary engagement at New York City's Glass Hat Club. There, the 19-year-old comedian met a 27-year-old singer named Dean Martin. Neither man had any idea that this chance meeting would launch one of the most successful partnerships in entertainment history. Their first encounter was simple enough.
Emotional abuse, it was every day.
Jerry was still performing his unusual lip-sync comedy routine, while Dean captivated audiences with his smooth singing voice and effortless confidence. Lewis immediately admired Martin's relaxed style. Dean seemed completely at ease on stage, possessing a cool charm that audiences found irresistible. Before long, fate brought them together again, this time at the Havana Madrid nightclub in New York. Watching Dean perform for a second time only confirmed Jerry's first impression. After the show ended, Lewis introduced himself, and the conversation flowed naturally.
My father was the top box office draw on planet Earth.
The two young entertainers stayed together long after the audience had gone home, exchanging stories, making each other laugh, and experimenting with comedy ideas. What began as casual conversation slowly evolved into discussions about creating an act together. Neither realized they were laying the foundation for a partnership that would soon dominate American entertainment. Their biggest opportunity arrived unexpectedly in Atlantic City. At the famous 500 Club, another performer dropped out of the show at the last minute. Jerry persuaded the club's owner to give Dean the vacant spot. Martin performed his usual selection of songs, but afterward the pair decided to improvise some of the comedy routines they had been developing together. The audience exploded with laughter. That single performance changed everything. The chemistry between them was impossible to ignore. Dean played the calm, confident straight man whose effortless singing made him look unshakable. Jerry became the complete opposite, a whirlwind of frantic energy, exaggerated expressions, physical comedy, and unpredictable chaos. Their personalities could not have been more different, yet together they created something audiences had never seen before.
Do I let my mother go on the street, or do I sue my father?
Lewis later described their formula as combining sex appeal with slapstick comedy, and it proved irresistible. Word spread quickly. Martin and Lewis soon became one of New York City's hottest nightclub attractions, eventually securing a residency at the legendary Copacabana. Their popularity grew at an astonishing pace. Success on stage led naturally to opportunities in radio, and radio exposure introduced them to television audiences across America. In 1948, the duo appeared on the very first broadcast of Toast of the Town, the program that would later become known worldwide as The Ed Sullivan Show.
I'm really sorry that I didn't have any one-on-one time with him to express that I love him.
The appearance introduced millions of viewers to their unique chemistry. 1 year later, NBC rewarded their growing popularity by giving them their own radio program, which remained on the air until 1953. Hollywood quickly noticed. Movie studios recognized that audiences could not get enough of Martin and Lewis, leading to a film contract that transformed them into major box office stars. Over the next decade, they appeared together in 17 successful films, including My Friend Irma, At War with the Army, That's My Boy, Jumping Jacks, and Money from Home. Most of the movies followed a familiar pattern that audiences loved. Dean usually portrayed the handsome ladies' man whose romantic adventures created endless complications, while Jerry played the lovable, accident-prone friend constantly trying to keep up. Their characters often found themselves arguing, separating, or stumbling into outrageous situations before eventually reuniting by the final scene. No matter what happened along the way, friendship always triumphed in the end. It was a formula that seemed almost impossible to fail. Film after film became another hit, and Martin and Lewis evolved into arguably the greatest comedy duo of their generation. Fans packed theaters, critics praised their chemistry, and the pair generated millions of dollars for Paramount Pictures. From the outside, they appeared unstoppable, with unlimited success stretching out before them. But appearances can be deceiving. Behind the laughter, tensions were quietly beginning to grow. While Dean Martin appreciated the partnership they had built, Jerry Lewis found himself wanting more than simply being one half of a famous act. His ambitions were expanding rapidly. He wanted greater creative control, bigger opportunities, and recognition not just as Dean Martin's comedy partner, but as a star in his own right. Jerry Lewis had reached a point where being one half of America's most successful comedy team was no longer enough. His ambitions had grown far beyond performing on stage. He wanted to write his own stories, direct films, and shape every aspect of the creative process. More than anything, he wanted Hollywood to recognize him not simply as a gifted comedian, but as a filmmaker with a unique artistic vision. It was an exciting goal, but one that gradually changed the balance between him and Dean Martin. Lewis also wanted to reinvent the characters he played. He no longer wished to be remembered as the loud, clumsy clown who existed only to create chaos. Instead, he believed comedy worked best when audiences genuinely cared about the person making them laugh. He began developing characters who were awkward, vulnerable, and deeply sympathetic. Lewis even created his own term for this type of role, the lovable schnook. To him, these characters were more than comic figures. They were ordinary people with hopes, fears, insecurities, and enormous hearts. Their flaws made audiences laugh, but their humanity made audiences care. On paper, the idea seemed like a natural evolution for the Martin and Lewis formula. Dean Martin typically portrayed the confident, cool, emotionally distant leading man whose outlook softened as Jerry's character worked his way into his life. If Lewis's characters became richer and more emotionally complex, the emotional payoff for Dean's character should have become even stronger. But there was one problem. Dean Martin was evolving too. After years of playing essentially the same role, Martin had grown frustrated. He no longer wanted to spend every film standing calmly beside Jerry's wild antics before finally showing a little emotion during the last few minutes. Dean wanted characters with greater depth, more meaningful dialogue, and opportunities to display his dramatic abilities as well as his natural charm. He wanted audiences to see him as more than just the handsome straight man. Unfortunately, Jerry's growing creative vision left very little room for Dean's own ambitions. As Lewis expanded the emotional depth of his own roles, Martin increasingly felt trapped inside the same familiar character. Rather than both men growing together, it seemed only one career was truly evolving. Dean later admitted that he often felt boxed into a role he had already outgrown. The creative disagreements were only part of the problem. At the same time, Dean Martin's solo singing career was taking off. He wanted future films to feature more musical performances and give him greater opportunities to showcase his voice. Jerry, however, remained focused on pushing his comedy in new directions and saw little reason to change a formula that continued filling theaters. The more Lewis took control of scripts, production decisions, and storytelling, the more it appeared that the films were becoming Jerry Lewis projects, with Dean Martin serving as a supporting player rather than an equal partner. By the mid-1950s, the strain between them had become impossible to ignore. Martin grew increasingly frustrated with the direction of their movies and privately complained that Jerry wanted control over nearly every creative decision. Many observers assumed Dean was simply jealous of Lewis's growing influence, but Martin strongly rejected that interpretation. According to him, the issue had never been fame or success. What troubled him was the feeling that the partnership no longer belonged to both of them. In his eyes, Jerry's relentless drive had slowly pushed him to the sidelines. Eventually, 10 extraordinary years together came to an end. On Tuesday, July 24th, 1956, just before what would become one of their final appearances, Jerry Lewis walked down the hallway to Dean Martin's dressing room. Officially, he was only looking for some ice, yet both men understood that much more was hanging in the air. They exchanged a few polite words, wished each other luck for the evening's performance, and quietly went their separate ways. Years later, Lewis admitted that the brief encounter haunted him. He wrote that as he walked away, he felt as though he was losing his closest friend. He couldn't fully understand how two people who had built so much together could suddenly be standing on opposite sides of an invisible wall. The following evening, July 25th, 1956, Martin and Lewis walked onto the stage at New York's Copacabana for the final time as a team. The date carried remarkable symbolism. It came exactly 10 years after their very first appearance together as a comedy duo. A partnership that had transformed American entertainment began and ended on the very same anniversary. Unlike many famous duos who eventually put old disagreements behind them, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis remained largely estranged for years. Pride, disappointment, and years of unresolved resentment created a distance that neither man seemed capable of crossing. Ironically, the same fierce personalities that had produced such extraordinary chemistry on stage also made reconciliation incredibly difficult once the partnership collapsed. Even after the breakup, Jerry Lewis refused to slow down. Determined to prove he could succeed on his own, he threw himself into new projects with the same relentless energy that had defined his entire career. One opportunity arrived in 1962 when he was invited to serve as a guest host on The Tonight Show. At first glance, it seemed like the perfect assignment. By then, The Tonight Show had already become the most important program in late-night television. Since its launch in 1954 under Steve Allen, it had helped create the format that countless talk shows would later imitate. Jack Paar succeeded Allen in 1957 and remained host until 1962, just before Johnny Carson would begin his legendary 3-decade run behind the famous desk. During the brief transition between Parr's departure and Carson's arrival, NBC relied on a series of guest hosts to keep the show on the air. Jerry Lewis's guest hosting appearances on The Tonight Show drew enormous ratings and convinced television executives that he could become the face of an entirely new late-night franchise. At the time, The Tonight Show stood virtually alone in the late-night landscape, dominating American television without any serious competition. Challenging it seemed almost impossible. Yet after Lewis's successful appearances, the major networks suddenly believed they had found the one entertainer capable of doing exactly that. According to accounts in Cliff Nestor's The Comedians, all three major television networks, ABC, CBS, and even NBC, aggressively pursued Lewis. The bidding war quickly escalated, but ABC emerged victorious by offering one of the richest contracts television had ever seen. The agreement called for a 2-hour live variety show every Saturday night, with 42 episodes per season. Lewis would reportedly earn an astonishing $8 million per season, with a 5-year option that would increase his salary even further. For the early 1960s, the figures were almost unimaginable. Money alone wasn't enough. Jerry Lewis also insisted on complete creative control, and ABC agreed to nearly every demand he made. Rather than using one of the network's existing studios, Lewis wanted an entirely new home for his program. ABC purchased the historic El Capitan Theater in Los Angeles and transformed it into a state-of-the-art television studio built specifically around Lewis's vision. The renovation became as extravagant as the contract itself. Alongside modern cameras, advanced lighting systems, and new control rooms, the theater received luxurious additions that reflected Lewis's larger-than-life personality. Elegant drapes, bright red carpets, lavish backstage facilities, and an enormous private dressing room helped transform the building into a personal showcase. The venue was even renamed the Jerry Lewis Theater, highlighting just how much faith ABC had placed in its new star. Once production began, however, executives discovered that Lewis's definition of creative control went far beyond what they had expected. He frequently kept producers and writers guessing about the structure of upcoming episodes, refusing to lock down even basic elements of the show's format. In perhaps the clearest example of his authority, Lewis installed a special switching console beside his desk that allowed him to override the director and personally choose live camera shots while the broadcast was on the air. Very few television stars had ever exercised that level of control over a network production. On September 21st, 1963, The Jerry Lewis Show finally premiered on ABC. The network promoted it as the biggest challenge yet to NBC's late-night dominance. Expectations were sky high. With one of America's biggest entertainers leading the charge, executives believed they were witnessing the birth of television history. Instead, they witnessed one of its most expensive disappointments. The premiere featured an impressive lineup of guests, including comedian Mort Saul, singers Kay Stevens and Jack Jones, and author Clifton Fadiman. Surprise appearances from television pioneer Steve Allen, comedy legend Jimmy Durante, and actor Robert Stack made the event appear almost unbeatable on paper. But once the cameras started rolling, the evening quickly unraveled. Technical mistakes disrupted the broadcast. The pacing felt uneven. Long stretches dragged without direction, and the ambitious 2-hour running time tested the patience of viewers at home. Critics responded mercilessly. Time magazine delivered one of the harshest reviews, ridiculing ABC for believing audiences wanted to spend 2 hours watching what it described as the unscripted ramblings of an egocentric bore. The criticism spread rapidly, and public opinion followed. Each passing week brought lower ratings and growing concern inside the network. Behind closed doors, panic replaced optimism. Everyone, from producers and crew members to executives sitting in corporate boardrooms, could see that the experiment was collapsing. By Thanksgiving of 1963, only 2 months after its debut, ABC made the painful decision to cancel the program. The cancellation proved incredibly costly. Because of the generous contract they had signed, the network was still obligated to pay Lewis despite the show's early failure. Although the original agreement envisioned years of programming and more than 40 episodes annually, the Jerry Lewis Show survived only 13 weeks before airing its final broadcast on December 21st, 1963. ABC immediately searched for a replacement. The network introduced The Hollywood Palace, a new variety program that filled the first hour of the vacant time slot, while local affiliates took over the second hour with regional programming. Unlike Lewis's ambitious production, The Hollywood Palace connected with audiences and remained on the air for 6 successful years, proving just how quickly television fortunes could change. Yet professional disappointment was only one battle Jerry Lewis faced. Behind the bright lights and roaring applause, he fought private struggles that few people truly understood. Lewis demanded perfection from himself at every stage of his career. He constantly searched for ways to improve his comedy, refine his performances, and surprise audiences with something they had never seen before. That relentless drive produced unforgettable moments on stage, but it also came with a heavy personal cost. His eccentric habits became legendary. Friends recalled that he refused to wear the same pair of socks twice. He carefully folded the cash in his pockets into perfectly organized stacks, arranging the bills according to their serial numbers. These routines reflected a deep need for order and control that extended into nearly every part of his life. Then came the accident that changed everything. In 1965, while performing before a live audience, Lewis attempted a daring double cartwheel off a piano. Instead of landing safely, he crashed violently onto his back. The audience watched in stunned silence as the injury left him in severe pain. The damage never truly healed. To manage the chronic pain, doctors prescribed the powerful painkiller Percodan. What began as legitimate medical treatment gradually developed into a devastating addiction that lasted for more than 13 years. The medication dulled his physical suffering, but it also intensified the emotional struggles that had long remained hidden beneath his public image. Lewis battled ongoing health problems throughout much of his adult life. He lived with type 1 diabetes, endured multiple heart attacks, including one during the filming of Cinderfella in 1960, and frequently pushed himself to keep working despite serious medical setbacks. At his lowest point, the addiction nearly ended his life. Lewis later admitted that in 1973, while under the influence of Percodan, he came frighteningly close to taking his own life. The moment that stopped him was hearing the voices of his children playing in the next room. Their laughter pulled him back from the edge and gave him a reason to keep fighting. In later years, Lewis sought treatment and gradually overcame his addiction, but the emotional and physical scars remained. His extraordinary career brought worldwide fame, countless awards, and generations of devoted fans, yet it also came with personal struggles that were largely invisible to the public. The contrast between the beloved entertainer and the troubled man behind the curtain remains one of the most fascinating and heartbreaking chapters of Hollywood history. Now we'd love to hear your thoughts. Which part of Jerry Lewis's life surprised you the most? Was it the rise and fall of his legendary partnership with Dean Martin, the spectacular failure of his television empire, or the private battles he fought away from the spotlight? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and want more untold Hollywood histories, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.